Many utilities these days seem to have a preoccupation with the concept of fairness. Utilities throughout the country are emphasizing fairness concerns to advocate for major policy changes that would greatly hinder the growth of the nation's rooftop solar energy industry. Utilities from Arizona to Wisconsin and several other states in between are invoking notions of fairness to argue for new fees on solar users, reforms to net metering programs, and other policy changes that reduce incentives for utility customers to go solar. Again and again, these utilities emphasize fairness as a driving justification for their proposals. Of course, almost all of us generally want policies to be fair. But should we be concerned about utilities' growing use of fairness arguments against policies that favor rooftop solar energy? Well, interestingly, the topic of fairness has garnered lots of attention in legal academic circles over the past couple of decades. Most notably, in 2001 and 2002, a pair of Harvard Law School professors named Stephen Chevelle and Louis Kaplow published a book and a 300-page article in the Harvard Law Review that focused on appeals to the notion of fairness in policy debates. In essence, Chevelle and Kaplow concluded that we should be very cautious when using fairness arguments as a basis for policy decisions. To use their own words, quote, "When a particular result seems fair or unfair to us, we should explore the problem both analytically and empirically, and we should also reflect on our notion of fairness. In some instances, we will thereby identify important considerations that we might otherwise have omitted from our analysis. At other times, we'll find that our notion of fairness is misleading. A common phenomenon is that the notion of fairness reflects one important factor in a situation, but ignores others." Now, Chevelle and Kaplow are very smart guys. So let's apply their advice and more carefully analyze the basic fairness arguments against rooftop solar energy policies. It appears that utilities use fairness as a proxy to describe three different types of impacts within electricity markets relating to solar energy. The first and most important argument utilities make is that solar-friendly policies allow customers with rooftop solar panels to use the electric grid without paying their, quote, fair share of the costs of maintaining it. Now, basically, utilities are arguing that because customers with solar panels buy less power from the utility has to raise its electricity rates, and that those higher rates cause customers who don't have solar panels to end up paying more for their power. This basically is a claim about cross-subsidization, a claim that those who do not have solar panels are subsidizing those that do. Of course, cross-subsidization among ratepayers is nothing new. It actually occurs all the time. Factors such as a customer's proximity to power plants or the time of day when a customer consumes most of his or her power greatly impact the size of a customer's individual cost burden on its utility. But electricity rates typically take very few of these factors into account when setting electricity rates. In fact, many utilities intentionally create cross-subsidies within their own rate structures. For instance, in lots of jurisdictions, there are differences between the per kilowatt-hour prices that commercial and residential ratepayers pay, or between what high-income and low-income ratepayers pay for their same power. Of course, utilities rarely express any concerns about the fairness implications of these cross-subsidies. Moreover, empirical evidence suggests that for the foreseeable future, current electricity rate structures just aren't likely to lead to really major cross-subsidizations towards solar energy users. A rigorous report recently released by the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory concluded that even if a utility in the southwestern United States met 10% of its energy demand through net metered rooftop solar energy, a level of rooftop solar energy that vastly exceeds the current level in most parts of the United States, the utility's electricity rates would only increase from that large increase in solar by a mere 2.5%. Now, the truth is that in the Southwest, solar panels tend to produce the most power in the late afternoon on hot summer days, the exact times that electricity demand is high, and utilities are paying the most for the power that they provide to us. And if we factor in the environmental benefits associated with solar energy, like regulators in Minnesota recently did, the net value to society of rooftop solar generated electricity becomes much, much higher. Now, even if it were true that net metering did result in significant cross-subsidies to rooftop solar users, which is doubtful in many cases, it's not entirely clear that those subsidies would be a bad thing. Governments have been intentionally subsidizing solar energy for more than a decade, just as they do with oil and gas producers and lots of other parties in the energy industry. Subsidies for solar energy may be a legitimate means of correcting positive externality problems that might otherwise lead to suboptimally low levels of solar energy installations in the market. Utilities have yet to articulate any good reason why the subsidies that they claim are so problematic between utilities customers because of rooftop solar energy and customers without panels under existing rate structures are any less fair than the cross-subsidizations between, say, taxpayers and solar energy users that exist under the tax credits, rebates, and other programs that have historically supported solar energy. A second and closely related fairness argument, though, is that pro-solar policies result in wealth transfers from low-income citizens to higher-income citizens. Now, as this argument goes, wealthy utility customers are probably more likely to be homeowners with good credit scores, and thus are more likely to benefit from policies that favor rooftop solar energy. Is this a valid fairness argument? Well, certainly it does seem true that low-income households are not getting rooftop solar panels as quickly as those of higher socioeconomic status. However, in many states, lower-income households may not be getting solar panels because doing so offers them far less of a financial benefit, since they already qualify for steeply discounted electricity rates. For instance, in the territory of Arizona's APS utility, a family of 5 making roughly $42,000 per year can qualify for income-based monthly electricity rate discounts ranging from 26 to 65%. It would make very little financial sense for customers receiving those sorts of huge discounts to get solar panels. In addition, research shows that low-income individuals are more likely to live near coal-fired power plants and nuclear plants that carry significant health and safety risks. So policies promoting clean energy may actually make many of these citizens better off in the long run. In short, income regressivity-based arguments against solar energy utility policies simply don't carry much weight either. Now, there's one more major fairness argument that is made against solar energy-friendly policies. It's the claim that these policies are unfair to utilities themselves. In what sense might solar-friendly policies and rate designs arguably be unfair to utilities? Well, it's true that the growth of rooftop solar energy has the potential to significantly cut into utility companies' profits. Electric utilities invest in expensive grid infrastructure on an expectation that state regulators will protect them against competition and ensure that utilities eventually recoup all their investment and a reasonable return. One could thus argue that a state's support of policies that favor rooftop solar energy breaches this implied regulatory compact between utilities and state regulators. However, it's important to remember that state governments have never promised utilities that they would protect them against what we might call disruptive innovations in the electricity industry, such as rooftop solar energy technologies. Moreover, shareholders who invest in utilities have long enjoyed higher returns on investment, in part because they assumed such additional risks when they purchased their shares. So it simply is not reasonable for utilities and their shareholders to argue now that policies allowing for the growth of rooftop solar energy are unfair to them. Now, to be clear, it's definitely true that there could be some pain for all of us if the transition toward distributed generation is not managed effectively. If handled improperly, this transition could theoretically cause some utilities to spiral into insolvency, creating lower quality electricity service for all of us. However, arguments that frame these challenges as being about fairness don't help to address these legitimate policy concerns. Instead, utilities' fairness arguments just distract and mislead in ways that slow our progress in addressing the real challenges that utilities face today. So what might we take from all this? Well, quite simply, policymakers and stakeholders should demand that fairness arguments not be made in the debate over utility policies that affect rooftop solar energy. Digging more deeply into the real conflicts at issue and disregarding fairness arguments is more likely to lead us to policies that facilitate a smooth, efficient transition toward clean distributed energy.